There's this remarkable poem by Emmanuel Ortiz from 9/11/2002. And tip of the hat to Nate, one of our producers here, our video guy who printed this out for me, about 9/11. And, you know, it starts out, before I start this poem, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silence in order of those who died in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon last September 11. But then it gets interesting. He said, but I would also like to ask you to offer up a moment of silence for all of those who have been harassed, imprisoned, disappeared, tortured, raped, or killed in retaliation for those strikes. For the victims in both Afghanistan and the U.S. And if I could add just one more thing, a full day of silence for the tens of thousands of Palestinians who've died at the hands of U.S.-backed Israeli forces over decades of occupation. 6 months of silence for the 1.5 million Iraqi people, mostly children, who have died of malnourishment or starvation as a result of an 11-year U.S. embargo against their country. Before I begin this poem, 2 months of silence for the blacks under apartheid in South Africa, where Homeland Security made them aliens in their own country. 9 months of silence for the dead in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where death rained down and peeled back every layer of concrete, steel, earth, and skin, and the survivors went on as if alive. A year of silence for the millions of dead in Vietnam, a people, not a war, for those who know a thing or two about the scent of burning fuel, their relatives' bones buried in it, their babies. Shh. Say nothing. We don't want them to learn they're dead. 2 months of silence for the decades of dead in Colombia, whose names, like the corpses they once represented, have piled up and slipped off our tongues. Before I begin this poem, an hour of silence for El Salvador, an afternoon of silence for Nicaragua, 2 days of silence for Guatemala, none of whom ever knew a moment of peace in their living years. 45 seconds of silence for the 45 dead at Ocotal, Chiapas. 25 years of silence for the 100 million Africans who found their graves far deeper in the ocean than any building could poke into the sky. There will be no DNA testing or dental records to identify their remains. And for those who were strung and swung from the heights of sycamore trees in the south, the north, the east, and the west, 100 years of silence. For the hundreds of millions of indigenous people from this half of right here, whose land and lives were stolen in postcard-perfect places like Pine Ridge, Wounded Knee, Sand Creek, Fallen Timbers, or Trail of Tears. Names now reduced to innocuous magnetic poetry on the refrigerator of our consciousness. So you want a moment of silence? We are all left speechless. Our tongues snatched from our mouths, our eyes stapled shut. A moment of silence, and the poets have all been laid to rest. The drums disintegrating into dust. Before I begin this poem, you want a moment of silence? You mourn now as if the world will never be the same. And the rest of us hope to hell it won't be. Not like it always has been. Because this is not a 9/11 poem. This is a 9/10 poem. It's a 9/9 poem. It's a 9/8 poem, a 9/7 poem. This is a 1492 poem. This is a poem about what causes poems like this to be written. And if this is a 9/11 poem, then this is the September 11th poem for Chile, 1971. This is the September 12th poem for Steve Biko in South Africa in 1977. This is the September 13th poem for the Brothers at Attica Prison, New York, 1971. This is the September 14th poem for Somalia, 1992. This is a poem for every day that falls to the ground in ashes. This is a poem for the 110 stories that were never told. The 110 stories that history chose not to write in textbooks. The 110 stories that CNN, BBC, the New York Times, and Newsweek ignored. This is a poem for interrupting this program. And still you want a moment of silence for your dead? We could give you lifetimes of empty, the unmarked graves, the lost languages, the uprooted trees and histories, the dead stares on the faces of nameless children. Before I start this poem, we could be silent forever or just long enough to hunger for the dust to bury us. And you would still ask us for more silence. If you want a moment of silence, then stop the oil pumps. Turn off the engines and televisions. Sink the cruise ships. Crash the stock markets. Unplug the marquee lights. Delete the instant messages. Derail the trains, the light rail transit. If you want a moment of silence, put a brick through a window of a Taco Bell to pay the workers for wages lost. Tear down the liquor stores, the townhouses, the White Houses, the jailhouses, the penthouses, and the Playboys. If you want a moment of silence, then take it on Super Bowl Sunday. The 4th of July, during Dayton's 13-hour sale, or the next time your white guilt fills the room where my beautiful people have gathered. You want a moment of silence? Then take it now, before this poem begins. Here, in the echo of my voice, in the pause between goose steps of the second hand, in the space between bodies and embrace, here is your silence. Take it. But take it all, don't cut in line. Let your silence begin at the beginning of crime. But we, tonight, we will keep singing for our dead. Brilliant. Moment of silence before I start this poem by Emmanuel Ortiz, 9/11/2002. Thank you for that, Nate. There's this remarkable poem.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, what is it, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that you know, I like to say, you know, help you win the water cooler wars. Programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, and that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when that, you know, when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, you know, right now it's meaningful, but, you know, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, you know, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book, and going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously, consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With the $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. My well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's for the $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Tuesday. A lot going on in the world today. Kevin McCarthy just declared an impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump, but there's no vote to actually establish an impeachment inquiry. There's no specific impeachment inquiry committee. In other words, this is just a stunt. He says Jim Comer and Jim Jordan are going to handle this. Well, they're already heading, the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee, and they're already investigating the possibility that Hunter Biden profited off his father's name. Yeah, he took $2 billion from the Saudis, didn't he? Based on his father's name? Oh, no, wait a minute. That was Jared. I'm sorry. He made $700 million while his father was in the White House, didn't he? Oh, I'm sorry. That was Jared and Ivanka. I could go on, but you get the point. This is cynical. Frankly, this is swift boats all over again. But more on that tomorrow. Anyhow, that's going on. Also, can America take on and defeat the new economic Royalists? We'll talk about that. The Fascists versus free, comparing red states and blue states. This is a fascinating analysis. In the second hour of our program, why MAGA cultists refuse to accept Donald Trump's 91 felony charges. This is an interesting piece by a neuroscientist. I'll share that with you at the second hour. Also, will these 6 states keep Donald Trump off the ballot? Seriously, there are 6 states that are considering the 14th Amendment. We'll talk about that the second hour. And America has faced $23 billion in extreme weather disasters so far this year. And it's only September. It is September, right? Yeah, there we go. I don't do time well. Anyhow, it's $23 billion. We'll talk about that in the third hour. Greg Palast is going to drop by. How the Osage of Oklahoma were the richest people on the planet until some oil barons killed them for the oil. And finally, the world's largest carbon capture facility is coming to Texas. Will it work, or is it just greenwashing? So, a lot to talk about. I've shared my opinions of Kevin McCarthy and his stunt with you. I think that this is part of the ongoing effort to simply destroy Americans' faith in democracy. And, China is now promoting this. There was an article yesterday about how China has jumped into the, let's trash America theme. Actively doing propaganda, essentially. Russia's been doing this now for decades, frankly, but, in a big way since the 2016 election. The Saudis haven't been so much promoting the stuff here in the United States, but apparently Twitter has been handing off to them confidential information. They're the second largest investor in Twitter. They helped Elon Musk buy it, and apparently they got the information about some Saudi dissidents that they're using now to torture and murder, and they just sentenced this one guy to life in prison in Saudi Arabia. He had 10 followers on Twitter for a tweet that was disrespectful of Mohammed bin Salman. It's amazing. But here in the United States, in addition to this, right-wing billionaires have seized control of our Supreme Court, and through that, pretty much every other aspect of American political and economic life. Heidi Presbala was reporting this week in Politico that Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas being the deciding vote in 2010, the Citizens United case, back in 2010, Ginny was all ready for that decision. In fact, just a few weeks before the decision was announced, she and Leonard Leo, with money from this right-wing billionaire who has been supporting her for some time, Harlan Crow, the three of them basically set up this first nonprofit, then a for-profit organization that Ginny Thomas runs that has been at the center of an awful lot of right-wing activity, including bringing people to January 6th. This is essentially what they're doing here is establishing oligarchy. Oligarchy is a form of government where you first allow billionaires to take over your political process, and then those billionaires direct politicians to engage in actions which make the billionaires even richer. This is what we've been watching now in the United States for 42 years. This is the essence of Reaganism. Make the rich rich. I mean, they even had a justification for it. They called it trickle-down theory. And the idea that if you pour money into the money bins of the morbidly rich, they'll use some small portion of that money to build new factories and hire you and give you a good job. Now, it turns out it didn't work out that way, but this is a story that's been around for a long, long time. Back in the late 1800s, 19th century, and the early 20th century. In fact, this was, Warren Harding referenced this in his run for president in 1920, was the horse and sparrow theory. Back then, it wasn't so much by 1920. By 1920, at least everybody in cities had cars, but in 1890, cities were still full of horses. And the theory was that if you overfeed a horse with oats, they don't all get digested. And so they pass through the horse into the horse patties that they drop behind them, undigested, which is like edible food for sparrows. And in fact, you would see sparrows, eating from horse patties. So the theory was, give the horses extra oats, those extra oats will pass through, the sparrows will have more food, and the metaphor is give more money to rich people, and the rich people will pass that through and pour a little bit of it on the average working person. I suppose you could, tie this back to the trickle-down theory. It's they're peeing on you and telling you that it's raining. I mean, it's passing through their body, right? I'm getting a little gross here, so I'll stop at that point. But Jimmy Carter pointed out back on this program about 7 years ago, 8 years ago actually, that Citizens United, he said, Citizens United violates the essence of what made America a great country in its political system. Now we're just an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery being the essence of getting the nomination for president or to elect the president. He says, now we've just seen a complete subversion of our political systems as a payoff to major contributors who want and expect and sometimes get favors for themselves after the election's over. And Carter's right. Now, this isn't the first time oligarchs have tried to take over our country. This happened in the early 1800s, from the 1820s to the 1860s, when the oligarchs in the South rose up, took control of the South, turned it into a fascist police state, and then tried to impose that fascist police state on the rest of us by declaring war on the North. We pushed them back, put those oligarchs back in the bottle, as it were. And then they appeared again in the 1920s, took over the country with the Harding administration and his horse and sparrow shtick, and deregulated everything, cut taxes on the morbidly rich from 91% down to 25%, excuse me, Warren Harding. And the result of that was the Roaring '20s, which was roaring for stock investors, but was terrible for average working people. The Roaring '20s were a time when wages actually went down because the billionaires had taken over, or the oligarchs. They were millionaires back then. And the consequence of that was the Republican Great Depression of 1929 through roughly 34 or 35. And that led to Franklin Roosevelt getting elected in 1932 and Democrats taking control of the House and Senate with huge majorities as Franklin Roosevelt put our country back together. So that was the second rising of oligarchs that got put down by the people. There was a smaller one in the era 1890 to 1910 era that Teddy Roosevelt went after. But now we've got a third one, this huge one. It started in 1981 when Ronald Reagan became president, and basically adopted every policy that the right-wing billionaires wanted. All the stuff that the Heritage Foundation actually put together a program for him. It was called a path to leadership, I believe, as I recall. And Reagan did it, step by step. And it all tied back into Citizens United. I mean, Citizens United came in 2010. It all tied back at that time to Bellotti and Buckley, these two Supreme Court decisions in the 70s that legalized the bribery of politicians and legalized corporations bribing politicians. And so, here we are. The country has been basically taken over by right-wing billionaires and giant industries. And the average working person is, to paraphrase Grover Cleveland in his 1888 State of the Union address, the average person is falling behind as the iron heel of corporations steps on his neck. What do we do about this? We have to have a massive, an overwhelming Democratic victories in the 2024 election. There's no other way to get to fix this problem. And then we reverse Citizens United through Congress.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And that is going to take you and me doing everything we can between now and November of 2024 to make sure the Democrats actually win those victories. And welcome back, Bruce in Seattle. Hey, Bruce, what's on your mind today?
What you just spoke about in healthcare, that nonprofits as well as for-profits must be excluded from Medicaid. I'm a pulmonary public health physician who spent lots of time in government roles, and I'm your fan, first-time caller, only because I heard you say for the very first time something wrong. Maybe you misspoke when you said a nonprofit should run Medicaid. And I want to share evidence with you just in case. 2 weeks ago, you were pointing out how Medicare Part C blocks medically necessary drugs, procedures, visits, and mentioned that some for-profits like Molina in Medicare Part C are also in Medicaid. That's correct. I've been told that Connecticut is the only state that runs Medicaid entirely from government, not contracted out. Every state was that way in the 70s, but in your state, Oregon, and mine to the north, Washington, Medicaid is 100% privatized, contracted out to private companies, or nearly so. Medicare is only 50% contracted out. In your state, in Oregon, government money paid to Medicaid companies in 2021 was $11 billion, $22 billion in Washington state. You know about Molina, a private Fortune 500 company, gets 80% of its revenue from Medicaid, $792 billion in net annual income. But you may not know the behavior of nonprofits. In Washington state, there are 2 million Medicaid enrollees, one large Medicaid nonprofit that repeatedly denied simple asthma inhalers to my patients is called Community Health Network. It gets $8,000 per Medicaid enrollee, has 256,000 of them, 1/8 of our total Medicaid insurers. It's got an office in expensive downtown Seattle. It reports standing assets, Tom, of $508 million in stocks, bonds, and cash, and net income of $36 million. It compensated its attorney CEO $982,000 in 2022, the same in the prior 2 years. This you can see online. I don't know about Oregon, but in Washington State at the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. This community health plan of Washington reported giving $155,000 for political and lobbying activities, including $20,000 to the Washington Reagan Fund, whose purpose is to turn Washington State Republican, $50,000 to the Kennedy Fund to keep it Democratic, and lots of money to important figures running for office. It's only one nonprofit of many. And just two last points. There are several Medicare for All advocacy groups in Washington State. A big one, a nonprofit, is called Healthcare for All Washington. They did Zoom conferences with sympathetic types, and I asked and was invited to do one on taking Medicaid back into government, as you also advocated. I showed the president of that company my slides as a courtesy, and he disinvited me because I was going to show what I've just described. Wow. He said, you can't mention people. People aren't the problem. It's the system. And here I thought the Nuremberg prosecutions proved otherwise. The advocacy group leaders too often are lightweights, bought off with donations from the insurers, status from appointments to seats on state panels. The last point, in Washington State, the Health Care Authority requires 85% of Medicaid revenue that gives an insurer be spent on genuine service. Hospital, doctor bills, drugs.
15% overhead. Bruce, we're out of time. Thank you for that. You've convinced me. Thank you. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So here's a question for you. If you're going to run for president on the Republican ticket and you're going to run against Donald Trump, how do you run to the right of a guy who's an open and declared fascist? This is the real crisis that the entire GOP field is facing. Ron DeSantis thinks he can do it. He's actually trying to out-fascist Trump. In fact, he's doing it down in Florida. Trump wanted to create his own police force like Hitler's SS. DeSantis did it. He wanted to have his own private army like the brown shirts. DeSantis did it down in Florida, created his own private army. Trump wanted to shut down the fake news reporters. DeSantis actually proposed legislation. He couldn't get it through his own legislature to make it possible for him to sue people. I mean, this is basically fascism on steroids. And it's come to the Republican Party, and it's presenting quite a problem for them. I've got a whole piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. I think you'll find it fascinating. Check it out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And, you know, fascist versus free. This is a fascinating analysis that was put together by SendDem for Daily Kos. Florida, for example. Florida is one of the best examples, I think, of what happens when an open fascist, a naked fascist, Ron DeSantis, takes over a state and flips it, tries to flip it into an authoritarian state. Florida now has the highest inflation in the country. They have the second highest rent in the country. They have energy monopolies. They have insurance premiums that have tripled just in the couple of years since DeSantis took office, tripled. And, you know, they've excuse me, gerrymandered the state to the point where the Republican Party has had control for, you know, since 2000, since actually before that. Gay people are now second-class citizens. Doctors no longer have to treat them in Florida. Bullying in schools is now being done by Moms for Liberty. Nazis are openly marching in the streets, and their talking points are now, SendDem writes for Daily Kos, are now educational standards for Florida's schools. Now contrast that with Minnesota. In Minnesota, the Democrats took control of both the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. They had a 4-month-long legislative session. It's a part-time legislature in Minnesota, 4 months long. In those 4 months, the Democrats in Minnesota expanded paid family leave for working families, made the state a haven for transgender youth, protected abortion rights, legalized marijuana for adult use, put sensible restrictions on access to firearms, restored voting rights to formerly incarcerated felons, made school breakfast and lunch free for all students, K through 12, set a 100% carbon-free standard to be met by utility companies by 2040, protected the rights of unionized workers, and raised taxes on corporations and high investment earners. Minnesota, by the way, has a budget surplus of $17.5 billion. Schoolaroo is a website that is, you know, basically for teachers, and every year they rank the best states in the union and the worst states in the union for teachers. And, you know, frankly, what you find is that the best states for teachers are also the best states for education. Number 1 in the country, Washington State. Number 2, California, and going down through the list in descending order, 3 New York, 4 Massachusetts, 5 Utah, 6 Hawaii, 7 Oregon, 8 Minnesota, 9 Maryland, and 10 Connecticut. Those are the 10 best states for education in the United States. And every single one of them is a blue state. The 10 worst states for education in the United States, in descending order in ascending order rather, from the almost worst, from number 41 all the way up to number 50, the very worst: Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, Indiana, Louisiana, West Virginia, and number 50, the worst state in the union for education, Florida. Now, what do those 10 states all have in common? They're all red states. I mean, Texas has converted their libraries into what they call discipline spaces. The Texas governor has banned diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. You've got a record number of graduating seniors in Texas who aren't, you know, they're planning on leaving the state. Same with the University of Texas. Graduates are leaving the state. Business conventions are dropping Florida. Greg Abbott is hitting banks and investment firms that choose not to put money into gun manufacturers. They're being denied public contracts. The energy grid in Texas is a complete mess. Physicians are leaving in droves from Texas, North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida because of the abortion bans. The Association of American Medical Colleges observed a decline in residency applications in states with this restrictive abortion bans, a 10.5% drop. A survey of 2,000 current and future physicians in February saw that 76% of them won't even bother to apply to a state with an abortion ban. This decline in ob-gyns is twice as high in abortion ban states, which means less prenatal care, fewer cancer screenings, and pap smears. Idaho now is down to about 86 primary care doctors per 100,000 patients. It's a disaster, and the number's continuing to decline in Idaho. This is the difference between red states and blue states. It's visible, it's obvious, it's horrible. Fascist versus free. We'll be back with your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, helping you win the water cooler wars.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Speaking the truth, the GOP would really rather you didn't know. I'll be back with your calls right after this. Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that I like to say, help you win the water cooler wars. Programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, and that, frankly, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, let's get a little money in the bank so that when when these next fund drives come along, because, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, right now it's meaningful, but, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's two ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book, and going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of three things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With the $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, my well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of two different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's with a $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you, taking your calls. Mary in Laurie, Missouri. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, I was contemplating today.
Mary, can you get your mouth a little closer to the microphone? It sounds like you're talking to us from the bathroom here.
I turned off the speaker, sorry. I was contemplating today. I am absolutely convinced that Trump will get life in prison without parole. Having said that, I got to getting a little esoteric, and I thought, what is evil? Because in my lifetime, the only really, truly evil human being that I can conceive of is Donald Trump. Now, Hitler, isn't part of my lifetime. He's part of history. But in my lifetime, I think you could actually call that person evil. And it made me think, well, what the heck is evil? I mean, it came up, and I only speak English, but I mean, it seems a rather, medieval, you know what I'm saying? Like evil. And so I was just calling to say that. And I started, I thought about Trump's niece that wrote the book about how he's, mentally whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, is it mental illness? Is evil mental illness? I don't think so.
This is something.
And then I thought.
Go ahead.
And then I thought about what Plato said. Plato never said, as I recall, he never said evil. He just said the good.
This is an issue or a question that philosophers have struggled with for thousands of years. What is evil? There was a time when it was believed that evil was basically demonic possession, and you drive the demons out with exorcisms and things. There have been a bunch of different perspectives on evil. I think it's fairly clear that Donald Trump is both evil and mentally ill, and that he's mentally ill because he was wounded by his childhood. And when you look at some of the European countries,
but that's creating an excuse.
I get that, but let me finish my thought. When you look at the European countries that have really worked hard to help make childhood easy, that offer paid family leave for a year and a half or 2 years when babies are born, so that they can bond with their parents, that provide good, vigorous, healthy support to parents and to families, that basically don't have poverty. We just got the report from the Census Bureau this morning showing that poverty in the United States just doubled in the last 2 months because of the end of the child tax credit and some other programs that were left over from the pandemic. And so the number of children in poverty in the United States just doubled. Those are children that are at risk of growing up damaged. Now, Donald Trump obviously didn't grow up in poverty. He wasn't damaged by that. He was damaged by having a psychopath as a father and an emotionally distant mother, a mother who didn't want him, frankly, or didn't know how to handle him. But the more we can do across society to try to make sure that children grow up in a way that isn't, that doesn't involve damage, I think the better. But you could look at this theologically, you could look at it psychologically. I think we have to look at it as like a public health crisis. The kind of behavior that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are engaging in is a danger to the physical and mental health of America. And, just point that out.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Can I just interject this one thing? Mm-hmm. What really boggles my mind is, how does evil creep into a society? You know what I'm saying?
It's contagious.
Because, like the gentleman earlier, the doctor earlier that talked about how Medicaid, and all that. Mm-hmm. How does it, creep in? So it makes me feel like, geez, maybe, and remember, it's gone way back in literature, Dante's Seven Circles of Hell and all of that. I'm like,
well, just look at your good Germans.
You often talk about, the witchy women and all that. I'm starting to think, Jesus, maybe there is such a thing as, pure freaking evil.
Yeah,
but I'm trying to figure it out.
There may well be, Mary.
What is that concept?
Yeah, thank you. I've got to move along. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Just a quick one. It's my understanding that for a candidate to run for president must be on a ballot in every single state. So if one state refuses to have Trump on their ballot, does that disqualify him from running, or am I understanding this wrong?
No, it just makes it. Yeah. It just makes it unlikely that he'll be elected.
But he can still run?
Yeah. People would have to write him in on the ballot in those states. And those ballots, if he was prevented from being on the ballot by the 14th Amendment, those ballots that had his name written in would not be tabulated. And if he won the state, it would be thrown out. And that's the thing. It would make it much harder for him, to become president, because he wouldn't get the electoral votes of those states. And several of the states that are looking at doing this, are swing states. So, you know, he's looking at some serious problems here, Alfredo. Okay?
Well, thank you for explaining that, Tom. Thanks.
My pleasure. Greg in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Greg, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Tom,
hey.
I just want to add a footnote about the Hall and Crow.
Mm-hmm.
He inherited a fortune.
That's right.
His father
from Trammell Crow,
not generally
right?
known out there. That's correct. Did a lot of business with that company years ago. So he was born with one gigantic silver spoon in his mouth.
Yep.
And it is a footnote, but it's not like he's a completely self-made man.
No, he's not even remotely self-made.
Well, you know it. Now your audience knows it, but I've never heard anyone say that on the air before, so we just got it out.
That's interesting. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Greg. It's a good point to make.
Okay,
thank you very much. Andy in Lexington, Kentucky. Hey, Andy, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good afternoon. I heard you mention earlier about the trickle-down economics, about creating jobs and how that works.
And horse and sparrow economics, yeah.
How would you create jobs if you don't have businesses creating jobs?
Well, I'm not saying the businesses don't create jobs. What I'm saying is the businesses don't create jobs because their CEOs and stockholders got tax cuts. Businesses create jobs all the time. I mean, that is where jobs come from outside of the government sector. My point is that the Reagan sales pitch in 1981, that if we drop the top tax rate on billionaires from 74% down to 25%, which Reagan did, then those billionaires are going to use that extra money to build factories. In fact, he also coined another phrase, job creators, which Republicans love to repeat. The fact of the matter is, we radically cut back on their taxes. They got massively richer, and they didn't go out and use that money to build factories. They used that money to buy, to have a competition over who can have the biggest $700 million super yacht.
Well, may I say one more thing?
You may.
All the taxes that local, state, federal government collects, everything I've seen comes from one source. And that's how everything's generated. If you pay your taxes, you got your taxes from that business money to pay your taxes with. Everybody's that way. That's how everything is done. Everyone gets a tax break. So that's how the tax code works. That's how a commune works. And you have to just make tax breaks work for the best of the commune.
Yeah, if you want to stimulate economic growth in the United States, if you want to take Reagan's sales pitch for trickle-down economics and actually, slightly modify it so it actually tells the truth is, if you can put money into the pockets of average working people who spend typically between 95% and 100% of their paycheck, every single paycheck, into the economy, that's where you want to put your money. You put your money into the hands of billionaires. I mean, Nick Hanauer was on this program. He's I'm not sure if he's a billionaire or just worth, $800 million, but he's a very, very rich man. He was the founder of Millionaires for what is it? Truth, Prosperity. I forget the organization, but anyhow, he made the point. He said, I probably make 10,000 times more than you do, Tom, but I don't buy 10,000 more pairs of blue jeans than you do. I don't buy 10,000 more shirts than you do. I don't buy 10,000 more homes than you do or cars than you do. So the fact of the matter is the economies, this is where supply-side economics, which is complete BS, falls down. And this supply-side economics, David Stockman, actually the phrase was invented by Jude Winniski, the guy who was the originator of the two Santa Claus theory. And the theory of supply-side economics is, if you provide more goods for people, they'll spend more money. Well, the fact of the matter is, and therefore to provide those goods, you give tax cuts to businesses and rich people so that they'll make more things. It's complete nonsense. The markets are driven by demand. Demand is what drives everything. And demand is a function of how much money working people have in their pockets. So if you give tax cuts to working class people, over the first year or two after those tax cuts, you will see the economy get goosed because they'll spend more money into the marketplace. We're seeing this with the child tax credit over the last 2 years. That was one of the major stimuluses for the economy, was that average working people had more money in their pockets, $600 a year, $1,200 a year that they were spending into the marketplace. But the problem is that 2 years out, 3 years out, employers figure out that their working people are now taking home more pay than they were before, and so they start cutting wages. When you cut taxes on working people, you cut wages. But if you can put money in their pockets, or if you can reduce some of their expenses, for example, most countries around the world provide free health care or very low-cost health care. In Canada, it costs about $150 a month to be part of the Canadian Medicaid system, or Medicare for all system. And, you know, the result of that is that instead of spending the average, you know, $4,500 a year that Americans spend on health care, you're spending, you know, less than $1,000 a year, or well, I guess that would be around $4,000. Anyhow, you're spending less, no, it'd be about $1,200 a year. You're spending less on health care, so you're spending more into the economy. You're stimulating the economy. So the
current president that's coming up, since he's come into office, we've had approximately 30% great over those years of inflation, which is a tax increase, great tax increase, but puts less money in people's pockets, takes away and humiliates their wages that they get.
Inflation does hurt wages, absolutely. And that's why, you know, it's such a good thing that Joe Biden has got America's inflation rate is the lowest of any developed nation on earth right now. And, you know, he's been doing a great job. The Inflation Reduction Act actually reduced inflation. You know, whether it's going to go back up again or not, I don't know. A lot of this is out of his control. You know, it has to do with what's left over from the what do you call it, pandemic. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. You see the flooding in Libya? This is just nuts. Climate change is just ripping this planet up. And welcome back. David in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. You gave this really good synopsis about the oligarchs going all the way back to the 18th century and up to today. Do you have some good reference material, or maybe one of your books that kind of tells that whole story in one place?
Yeah, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy.
Oh, okay, I thought you had something like that. So, yeah, I wanted to ask that. And one other really quick question is that you have called it the Republican Depression several times, and I have not been able to find a good, reliable source that backs that up, that tells really where this was quoted and who said it. And I just haven't been able to find anything to substantiate that. So do you have any reference for that?
The Republican Great Depression of the 1930s was frequently called that by Democrats,
right?
as you would expect. I'm not sure that any historians have officially labeled it that, but certainly there were you know, a lot of people who called it that. My dad used to call it that, and he was a Republican. Or my grandfather actually who was a socialist, was fanatic about calling it the Republican Great Depression. So, you know, it's more of an anecdote than a major historical footnote. But I continue the tradition. I continue to call it the Republican Great Depression. Okay?
All right, fair enough. All right, I'll have to check out your book.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. Barbara in Tompkinsville, Kentucky. Hey, Barbara, what's on your mind today?
Hi. I wanted to talk to you about, I have 45 years experience as a social worker and many years spent assessing narcissistic personalities as violent offenders. Mm-hmm. And I had probably more access than any researcher has ever had, because not only did I interview the narcissistic men, but I also interviewed their family, their victims. I had access to their school records, medical records, criminal records, because I was working through the court system. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about what evil is, and I think I've seen it, what people need to understand is most of these have personality disorders, not mental illness. The difference is mental illness is an injury or sickness, but personality disorder is more like a birth defect. One is treatable and the other is not. And personality disorders are basically birth defects. They're not treatable. I mean, you can do some things to help.
So you can't treat narcissism, in other words.
I don't think there is a effective treatment. No.
Wow.
But what I find that is hardwired.
Yeah.
And when
sociopathy
you look at
as well.
Oh yes, and that's part of the cluster B personality disorders, narcissism, and sociopathy. And most of the men that I worked with, the violent offenders who were child molesters and wife beaters, and they had a complete lack of empathy.
Right.
And they had almost no conscience at all. And when you put those two things together, you're going to come out with a human being who is evil, whose only motivation is what is good for them.
Right.
And another piece of that is that they are liars because lying is a control mechanism. So they lie about everything.
And you're describing Donald Trump to a T. Fascinating. Barbara,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you for that. That was very interesting. I appreciate that. It's 51 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. Back with you in 60 seconds. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag you're it. Right now we have the most extreme Supreme Court since the 1930s. And one of the main reasons is because these justices, A, have lifetime tenure, and B, in the 1990s, after a series of disappointments with William Brennan and Earl Warren and David Souter and a few others that have been nominated by Republicans, these justices tend to become more liberal once they're given lifetime tenure. So now we've got right-wing billionaires throwing gifts at them, emoluments, speaking fees. John Roberts' wife made $10 million, hooking people up with law firms. All the Republicans on the court are in on the grift. And it's really not so much designed to thank them for what they're doing, but to keep them conservative. Because in the past, Republican appointees have turned liberal. They're not going to let that happen. There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Steve in Park Ridge, Illinois. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Oh, you were talking a little earlier about Florida and Minnesota. I'm an Illinoisan, have been for I'll be 74 next month. In any event, I also own a second home now in the Sarasota area. Mm-hmm. We moved in 2020, so we spent half the time here, half the time there. And the contrast between a progressive Democratic state like Illinois and Florida is just beyond the pale. And you mentioned the insurance. Our insurance has tripled. We have open carry down in Florida. I think DeSantis is against masks and COVID awareness. Every day, my wife, she reads the local Herald by the Sarasota paper, and every day she says, "Guess what he did today?" And I swear that he is as dangerous, or more so, than you-know-who, number 45, in his own way, because he's actually a policy taker-awayer. It's just a horrible, horrible circumstance.
Yeah, DeSantis is much smarter than Trump, which makes him more dangerous.
Yes. So I just want to say, I have one little anecdote. So we moved in 2020, and as soon as we crossed the state line, we were driving down after we had purchased the house, and the first thing I saw was a Confederate flag hanging proudly way high in the air. The next thing I noted was a truck with a license plate F. Biden. And as we got closer, I said, "Hey, Vic, check this out. You think I should get out and engage him in conversation?" And in small letters, it said, "F you too if you voted for him. Welcome to Florida." So it really is a culture it's like a laboratory for fascism, and we've got to be very careful with his nomination for president. He is as bad or worse than the guy that we're all against.
Yeah. Is this causing you to reconsider having a home in sunny Florida and maybe relocate to Arizona or New Mexico or Southern California?
Well, actually, no. It's a fair question. Both of our parents had started this whole pilgrimage with second homes in Florida.
I see.
And in the Sarasota area, I will say there is quite a progressive community, and we're progressive ourselves. And I've been listening to you and this station for probably 12 years out of WCPT.
Yeah, we're on a nonprofit station in Sarasota too, by the way. I think it's on the FM dial.
I'll have to check that out, but keep up the good work. And I just want to. We will not. I think if we were to move, it would only be helping the red cause, the Republican cause.
Right.
So in our own way, we're going to be progressive in Florida, and we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Steve. I mean, I get it that doctors are fleeing these states because they just can't practice their medicine, and they're concerned about that. But individual citizens staying and trying to make a difference and fighting back, that seems to me like a good thing.
I would say this, though, if our children were young and in the school system, then I think we definitely would consider a move.
Oh, yeah, because their schools are just going to hell in Florida. Yeah, I get it. Steve, thank you for the call. That was fascinating. I appreciate it. We're hitting the top of the hour here. On the other side of the break, will MAGA cultists refuse to accept Trump's 91 felony charges? Why? Also, why women would be better off in the kitchen, according to right-wing media?
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that I like to say, help you win the water cooler wars. Programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world. and in particular what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, and that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when that, you know, when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, you know, right now it's meaningful, but, you know, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, you know, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book, and going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously, consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With the $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. My well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set. And they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's with a $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please Call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. A couple of fascinating news stories here. I'm just going to toss these out quickly, and we can talk about it if you'd like. A Democrat in Virginia, Susanna Gibson, is running for the Virginia House of Delegates, their equivalent of the House of Representatives, State House of Representatives. And she's a nurse practitioner, I believe, or maybe a physician's assistant, something medical. Her photographs show her wearing a white lab coat and a stethoscope. But she was making porn with her husband on a private site where people pay to watch live porn. She had 5,700 paid viewers. And now the Republicans are saying, people shouldn't vote for her because she did porn with her husband. I think the response to, some Republican who goes, oh my God, she did porn with her husband should be, yeah, so? But I'm wondering, how this is going to play out. It's going to be interesting. Susanna Gibson standing up to special interests is her. I mean, she's very progressive. And in fact, one lawyer, he's an adult entertainment lawyer, he said, I think it's fantastic. You have someone running who has an open sex life. It's actually very refreshing. That was Corey Silverstein, who's a Michigan-based lawyer but practices in Virginia as well. And there's now a fundraiser being run over on the internet. There's an Act Blue, to raise money for her campaign now that the Republicans are attacking her for that. So that's number one, data point number one. Data point number two, today's Daily Caller, which is one of the, it was owned by Tucker Carlson. I don't know if it still is. But this is one of the premier top-line Republican conservative publications in America, both online and in print. And the headline of an article by Mary Rook over on Daily Caller, and this is the top headline in today's newsletter, Right Reports newsletter, is, yes, women would be better off as housewives. Really. Do these really believe, the article goes into this whole thing that, that women have to understand. In fact, I'm quoting from it. Women have to understand motherhood is the one portrayed by pop culture, that all mothers hate their children and would rather be off at a winery somewhere without them. She says this is the narrative that's out there, and it's wrong, that instead women love to be home with their children. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of women who like to be home with their children. There are a lot of men who like to be home with their children too. But to say that we should be making public policy based on this, she writes, women who put off motherhood hold far more regret later in life, quack, quack, quack. It's like the war on women just never stops. And they're going to force women into motherhood by outlawing abortion. So, number one. Number two, the MAGA cultists refused to accept Donald Trump's 91 felony charges. You see, by the way, that Putin this morning came out and said, hey, these charges against Trump prove how corrupt America is. Trump is a good man. Putin riding to Trump's rescue. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about this? But anyhow, there was this study published in PLOS 1 about belief systems. And what they did was they put people into functional MRI scanners, which do brain scans. They show blood flow in the brain, so you can see which parts of the brain are lighting up at which times, and from that you can infer what kind of mental activity is going on. And they put them in this scanner and then presented them with a mix of either factual or abstract statements, the abstract statements being things that might challenge their belief systems. Accurately, but challenge their belief systems. And what they found was, and I'm quoting here, disbelief, it turns out, is cognitively demanding. It requires more mental effort than simply accepting a statement as true. So in a way, what they're arguing, Bobby Azarian writes about this over on Raw Story. The headline is, "A neuroscientist explains why MAGA supporters refuse to accept Trump's 91 felony charges." Trump supporters, well, it's far less cognitively demanding for them to believe anything their leader tells them. Any challenge to what Trump tells them is true takes mental work. This means there is a psychological incentive for Trump loyalists to maintain their loyalty. And then it gets really fascinating. There's a study that was published in Psychology Today, or an article about the study was published in Psychology Today, in an article titled, "Why Evangelicals Are Wired to Believe Trump's Falsehoods." And, you know, he points out, quote, "Children of Christian fundamentalists typically begin to suppress critical thinking at an early age. This is required if one is to accept biblical stories as literal truth rather than metaphors. Consequently, the brain structures that support critical thinking and logical reasoning don't fully mature," he writes. "This paves the way for heightened vulnerability to deceit and manipulative narratives, especially from cunning political figures." And then the other variable that they toss in here is the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is where people think that they're experts in fields in which they have no expertise. And, you know, there's a little bit of this in all of us, I suppose, but it becomes especially problematic when you're talking about things like climate change, for example. A mere 25% of those identifying as Trump supporters acknowledge the role of human actions in climate change. 3 out of 4 Trump supporters believe that climate change has nothing to do with the activity of humans. Now, how can you run a country in a way that's going to mitigate climate change if three-quarters of your believers don't believe that climate change is real or that it's happening because of human activity? I mean, the news story that is being told on the right now and on Fox News is that, you know, climates have always changed. We've had glacier periods, we've had warm periods, we had, palm trees in the Arctic. Well, that's all true. Climates have changed a lot, but they tend to change on these 125,000-year cycles and these 35,000-year cycles within them that are caused, you know, by the Earth's relative position to the sun. And those changes tend to happen very slowly over time. The very rapid changes we've had in climate, like the one that brought about the Permian mass extinction, that was the result of volcanic activity in Siberia. They called them the Siberian traps. It was just miles and miles and miles of the Earth opened up, and hundreds of billions of tons of lava poured out and heated the atmosphere and filled the atmosphere with poisonous gases that were greenhouse gases as well. And the result of that was, you know, over the period of the next just few decades, most life on Earth was destroyed. But that's probably a better analog to what's happening right now than to climate change that's the result of, you know, circling around the sun. But don't try to tell that to a Trump supporter, because they have their brains turned off. And what this study is arguing is that their brains are turned off in large part because as children they were taught, you know, about miracles in the Bible. I mean, that's pretty heavy. I'm actually not opposed to teaching children, about miracles in the Bible, although I think it's probably important to throw in a few caveats or say, you know, this is the story, or this is the tradition that we passed down. Anyhow, 6 states are trying to keep Trump off the ballot. Will they be able to do it? And America has faced $23 billion in extreme weather disasters so far this year. This is one of the reasons why insurance rates have tripled in Florida since Ron DeSantis became governor. What are we going to do about this? Stay tuned. I'll get into those topics right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Helping you win the water cooler wars. I'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back. Carol in Menneson, Pennsylvania. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom, and may I say hi, Z.W. Bacon, a friend of mine, so he knows it's me.
All right.
Okay. He's a big follower of yours. I wanted to say, first of all, that the previous caller was correct about the personality disorder. Mm-hmm. Malignant narcissism is one of the most dangerous ones of all. These people are born without a conscience, the ability to love or empathize with other people. And they care about nothing but themselves.
Are they born that way, or is this the result of an injury in childhood, like Donald Trump's father rejecting him and his mother, I mean, his dad stuck him in a military school, and during the school year and during the summers when he came home, his mother went to Scotland all alone for 3 months. He had no contact with his parents, basically.
Actually, there have been people who have had much worse childhoods than that who did not become malignant narcissists.
That's true.
Most psychiatrists see it as a birth defect, if you want to call it that.
Interesting.
People are born that way, and it is not treatable. It can't be cured. But that isn't why I called. The previous caller also said that she believes Trump to be evil, and what is evil? Well, I think that we know that God is good, and if you go against the teachings of God, and Donald Trump is evil. I mean, I can't even look at his face, literally.
Yeah.
He is evil, but that isn't even why I called. I'm so sorry. I called about this this crazy, phony impeachment that the House of Representatives, the MAGA Republicans, are about to impose upon upon President Biden. And they have absolutely no evidence for this. They're just doing it to create problems, to defund or unfund the government, to shut it down. And they care nothing for the people of this country. I mean, I think if you went to any Walmart or any Burger King or whatever in this country and asked the people, what do you need from your leaders, from your two parties, are they going to say we need to impeach Joe Biden? Or do you think they will say something other than that?
Yeah.
That's my question.
I think they would say something other than that. Although, if they're watching Fox News, they'd say we need to impeach Joe Biden. What I think is particularly interesting about this effort by Kevin McCarthy is that it cannot, the way he's organizing it, it cannot lead to impeachment because, impeachment requires a committee dedicated to that topic. And then that committee refers articles of impeachment to the whole House. Kevin McCarthy 3 weeks ago said that he was going to get a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives to create an impeachment committee that would look into the possibility of impeachment. That would be the way to do it. That's the way the Democrats did it with Donald Trump. But he's not doing that because he knows he'll lose the vote. There's a bunch of Republicans in the House of Representatives who are like, no, this is crazy. Don't do this. Don't go down this road.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. So, I think you're right, Carol, when you said it's the MAGA Republicans. And I think that Jim Comer and Jim Jordan probably qualify as malignant narcissists as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, this is the first time in my life that I have ever been afraid of my own country right now. They scare me.
Yeah, I get it, Carol. I am concerned as well. Carol, thank you for the call. Yeah, good talking to you. It's 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay tuned. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So every time we have an election, I mean, most recently we saw this in 2022, Putin and Mohammed bin Salman, Russia and Saudi Arabia, start raising the price of, basically to stick it to the the Democrats, hoping that they can lose power. I mean, it worked in 2022. They got their majority in the House of Representatives. And you'll recall all those $6 gasoline and $5 gasoline, and everybody squealing about it, and the little stickers they were putting on pumps with pictures of Joe Biden saying, I did this. Well, they're preparing to do it again. They've cut production, Saudi Arabia and Russia, and it's going to get a whole lot worse over the course of the next year as we're heading toward 2024. So what can we do about this? Well, I have a very specific proposal, and by the way, 70 different environmental groups have joined in this, along with Senator Ed Markey and several members of Congress, and that is to ban the export of American-produced crude oil. Make America energy independent, and we control the price. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. And welcome back, 21 minutes past the hour. So Alaska, Maryland, Michigan, New Hampshire, New Mexico, and Rhode Island have all told reporters, this is from a publication called The Messenger, and the reporter for The Messenger actually spoke with attorneys general or secretaries of state in each one of those states, that they are all looking at the possibility of a 14th Amendment challenge to Donald Trump. The 14th Amendment, of course, Section 3 of it, says that no person who has engaged in insurrection against the United States or given aid and comfort to the enemies thereof may serve in public office. Alaska, I find this fascinating. Yesterday, Joe Biden was in Alaska, by the way. In fact, somebody called and made a snarky remark about it. But the reality is, there was a fascinating piece in Politico about this I read last night, that Biden and the Democrats have been working with and wooing, essentially, Lisa Murkowski, the Republican senator from Alaska. Because, you know, Alaska actually needs federal support. Alaska's got a really harsh climate and, you know, doesn't have the ability to produce all of their own food. And, you know, Alaska has a lot of challenges. And so, you know, that's why Biden stopped there. They're trying to get Murkowski basically on their side for you know, some things where there's a common interest. I think it's fascinating. But Alaska's Lieutenant Governor, Nancy Dahlstrom, who's a Republican, said, and I quote, Alaska's Division of Elections is aware of these arguments and will consider them if necessary. Colorado's Democratic Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, who is being sued in a lawsuit to disqualify Trump, said that she welcomes the lawsuit and wants the court's substantive resolution of the issues. So she's waiting for the court to intervene. The Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson says, quote, we recognize the serious legal arguments regarding candidate eligibility and the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, she said, but important questions remain. As facts and court proceedings continue to unfold, we will proceed to make all decisions from a position of what the law and the Constitution require. 7 other secretaries of state, Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, South Carolina, South Dakota, Washington State, and West Virginia, have said no, they're definitely not going to bar Trump from their ballots. So, you know, you've got states taking positions on this. I find this whole thing absolutely fascinating. Meanwhile, we have talked about how, you know, State Farm, I believe it was, and farmers, you know, I shouldn't name companies because I might have them wrong, but the 2 of the big insurance companies have now pulled out of Florida altogether, just canceled all their policies or said, you know, told policyholders that they will not be renewing their policies because they're no longer going to do business in Florida. And other insurers in Florida and several Florida-based insurance companies, property insurance companies, have gone bankrupt now in the last 2 years. And as a result, property insurance rates in Florida have tripled in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's going to get worse because, you know, the storms are getting worse. They're just, you know, they're fueled by the heat in the Atlantic and in the Caribbean and in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's whacking the state, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And on top of that, you've got, you know, rising sea levels as a part of, you know, global warming. So, and then, of course, we have the deadliest wildfire in U.S. history in Hawaii. You've got Hurricane Idalia, which made landfall in Florida most recently. So here now, the nation, the scientists on Monday announced that the nation has endured 23 separate weather and climate disasters that caused at least $1 billion in damage each from January to August. This is a new annual record. In other words, we have beat every other year, and we're only 3/4 of the way through the year. Or 2/3, September, October, November, December. Yeah, 2/3 of the way through the year. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, said this year's events collectively, quote, caused 253 direct and indirect fatalities and produced more than $57.6 billion in damages. For Florida, Louisiana, and Mississippi, this was the hottest August ever recorded. Texas, it was the second hottest. Alaska, the third hottest. Worldwide, at the level of the globe, 2023 was the hottest ever recorded, and 2022 was the hottest before that. So what we have here is, you know, basically the destruction of the world in which we live, the world that we have built. It's like, you know, ants built an anthill, and then a flood comes along and washes it away. Here we are. We have built up, you know, human populations in all these areas, that thinking that, you know, hey, life will be good for the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years, for the rest of my lifetime. And now it's turning out it's not. Now we're getting things like, you know, here in Oregon, you know, we're getting 116-degree days. We had 3 days at worst. We had an equipment failure yesterday because it's 80 degrees in our studio right now, because the air conditioning system in this old building we're in broke back during the 116-degree days, 3 consecutive, and it's never worked right since then. I mean, it has to be happening in other places other than just our studio. It's a whole new world. And yet, we're still subsidizing the fossil fuel industry to the tune of $600 billion a year, just here in the United States.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It is time to wake the hell up and do something about this. I'll pick up your calls on the other side of this break. It's 27 minutes past the hour. Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, what is it, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that you know, I like to say, you know, help you win the water cooler wars, programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information, that takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, and that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, right now it's meaningful, but, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book. And going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With the $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, my well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's with a $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you. Hey, if you like the rants that I open the show with every day, they're typically published over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Ooh, welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls. Dusty on a sailboat? Hey, Dusty, where's your sailboat?
Hey, Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah. Where are you calling from?
I'm Cape Charles, Virginia at the moment.
How cool.
On the hard, as they say.
Yeah. What kind of sailboat is it?
It's Bruce Farr, 1985, 58-foot sloop.
That's a serious sailboat. Well,
yeah,
so what's on your mind, Dusty?
Yeah, I was just thinking a bit about, you often educate us about how we've come to this unequal influence of power, the coupling of wealth and power, leading towards a dysfunctional democracy and that sort of thing. Right. Which doesn't really provide a lot of the services that, most citizens would like to have from their government. And ergo, we have thousands of nonprofits in the country, trying to address things anywhere from healthcare, environment, emergency preparedness, education, civil rights, climate change, etc. So my thought was, instead of trying to treat all these causes that all these organizations have that they're trying to do, would it be more efficient for their mission to address the symptoms? And in this case, it'd be, removing a lot of these levers of power that have been put in place, i.e. Citizens United and a lot of other things like that, and focus actually on getting progressives elected into Congress to try and address these laws. And in that respect, making some sort of a unified push over a couple election cycles where they start pushing a lot of their money into that as a better means of getting to what they're trying to do. So I don't know if a lot of them start to do that. I noticed you had just mentioned something about joining with a bunch of environmental groups to change the laws about selling oil, and that kind of in that same spirit. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Dusty. An earlier caller pointed out that 15% of Medicaid in Washington State is going to administration for a nonprofit that runs Medicaid for the state. I think the state should simply buy up or take over or replicate that nonprofit and run it themselves. I mean, and in fact, it would be really cool if a coalition of states could get together and put together Medicaid, for all of them. Although I realize each state has their own unique Medicaid system, and they tend to brand them with the state and all that kind of thing. And that's just one example of many possible ones where, we really don't need all these nonprofit organizations doing good works when, in many cases, they're either doing it with government money and government should simply be doing it themselves, or they're replicating government efforts. So I think your point is well taken, Dusty. I completely agree. Thank you very much for that, and thanks for the call. David in North Miami Beach, Florida. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, y'all. Now that our governor is chasing out straight couples 2 by 2, including Gabrielle Union and Nicole Sandler, I wonder if that should be part of his presidential campaign. But me, I just filed my monthly expenses for my run for mayor. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering, how do I file a complaint with the FCC for the right-wing lovers of billionaires at all costs, whether Fox News Sunday, One America Network Plus, and that journalistic malpractice, acting like Elon Musk is a functioning human being. I'm sorry, he's not. He needs to be on Mary Trump's couch. Yeah. What can I do as a viewer?
There's no easy answers to any of those questions, David, beyond, elect as many progressives as possible to every level of government, from the mayor that you were running for all the way up to the White House. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this is public airway. This isn't, the usual. Oh,
in terms of how do you file a complaint with the FCC, there is a form over on the FCC's website for that. FCC.gov is the website. And, it shouldn't be hard to find.
Because Elon Musk, he thinks he's Green Lantern. That's why he won't put the warning yellow on his Tesla factories. And he thinks he's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Kicker. He wants to make sure that he's safely off Earth when everything goes boom.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I think Walter Isaacson, his biographer, said he struggles with his own demons. I think that's an understatement. I read another piece yesterday that said that he has 10 children because he believes that his genes are so good that he needs to help repopulate the Earth with brilliant people or something like that. I mean, if that's true,
how many of them
I'm skeptical.
Hate him, other than the one I know.
Yeah,
right.
it's just very weird, and one guy should not have that kind of power, particularly over U.S. foreign policy. Messing with the war in Ukraine. So I get it.
Exactly.
But David, I don't have any easy answers other than, and I think this is pretty straightforward. We need to do everything we can to elect progressive Democrats at every level of every government that we have any control over or where we can vote, and we need to support those progressive Democrats to the extent that we can with our money and our voices. Phone banking, door knocking. I mean, there's a lot that we can do, but it's going to have to happen at the ballot box. David, thanks for the call. John in Valley Springs, California. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hey, what's going on, Tom? You're still alive and kicking, and that's the main thing, man.
I am. Step by step, John. What's up?
Hey, just a couple of things. I'm going to make it short. And one thing came to mind because you were talking about oil here a while ago. I always thought that maybe the people should have their own oil company, and then part of the profits on that could go to promoting electrical. you know, and I think that would be a cool way to go, and it would really keep these other guys on
I
their
have
toes.
proposed, John, on multiple occasions, I've written 2 or 3 op-eds about this, and I've talked about it at some length on this program, that for the cost of the Trump tax cut, for about $1.7 trillion, the federal government could buy the 4 largest, or maybe it was the 5, I think it's the 4 largest oil companies in the United States. Just go into the New York Stock Exchange and buy enough of their stocks to gain controlling interest in them. And then once you got controlling interest in them, fire all the senior management, bring in people who are going to stop lying to the American people and funding liars to the American people, stop them from paying off Republican politicians to deny climate change, and start them on the path of becoming energy companies rather than fossil fuel companies.
Absolutely. We need to promote that idea more.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, I mean, it would be a huge thing to do. But,
and another thing,
you know, there's a long history of nationalizing the industries. Go ahead.
When the people talk about Trump, they should keep reminding the people about his history when he was a kid, where his father was born, pumping information back to the KGB about our political system and things like that. And Trump was raised by this person, and he was influenced by the man.
Well, his father was arrested at a Klan rally in New York.
Yeah, see, so there you go. You know, and that stuff needs to be discussed more.
And that was one of
young
young Donald's jobs when it was to take rental applications, like when he was a teenager. And whenever a black couple would apply, or black person would apply to rent one of his low-income properties, he would write the letter C on the application up in the corner to indicate that they were colored, and therefore they never got the spot. I mean, he got sued for that and convicted of that. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing would be the silent voters. We need to talk about the silent voters, and I think a good portion of those voters, including myself, that's how Biden got in.
Richard Nixon's silent majority.
Yeah, we voted for him.
Yeah.
So, and we don't talk to people too much because I've already come to the conclusion that most people around town that are hardcore Trump, you know, they're Trump thumpers, and most of them are just idiots. And if you bring up anything in detail, they don't want to talk about it. They're totally brainwashed. So I just give up on them.
Yeah, you can't have a reasonable conversation about politics with folks like that. I
hate to say it, but my brother's one of them, and I hate to say it because he is my brother, but that's the way it goes.
Oh, yeah, I had a really weird experience a month ago. I went to Michigan to stay with my brother Steve, and then we went to this party that an old friend of ours from the student union at Michigan State University threw, and it was a bunch of old hippies, you know, I mean, literally. Many of them still old hippies, but and old SDS people.
Types. I used to go through there all the time.
And there was this one guy that I knew. He used to run kind of the card games, the pinochle games, and the bridge games at the student union at MSU. You know, and he was just. I saw him there, and I went up and said, "Hey, it's great to see you." And he refused to talk to me, and I was like, "What the hell?" And, you know, he was staring and glaring at me and eventually, you know, Steve and I left the party, and it was like, what the hell's going on with this guy? And I talked to the fellow who threw...
It was built up in there.
No, I talked to the guy who threw the party, and he said, you know, a year or two ago, this guy just turned into a total Trump follower. And
it's weird. It's weird how they get brainwashed, you know?
Yeah. And he saw me as, you know, the embodiment of evil because I'm the #1 progressive talk show host in America. And it's like, therefore he wouldn't talk to me.
Evil.
It's bizarre. It's just truly bizarre. John, thanks a lot for the call.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you too. Thanks for the call. Pat in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Pat, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm 90 years old, and I'm really afraid for my grandchildren about this, the cold coming, you know, the change in climate. Now, I just want to give you a brief history of what happened in Britain. Around 1200, it was a warm period, and London had 40 different nurseries, and they were growing peach trees and things like that. At that time, the Northwest Passage was open, and from then on, when they wrote about it and came back, till 1500 or so, sailors kept on trying to find the Northwest Passage, and many died because they couldn't find it. Now, things started getting cold. It became the Little Ice Age around 1340, 1500. 1600, you've heard of Samuel Pepys. he wrote in 1622 that the Thames was frozen over so heavy that they could have a bonfire on the ice with a barrel of beef on top.
The thing, though, Pat, is that all of those were weather rather than climate. None of those reflected worldwide changes. They all reflected regional changes, mostly in the northern hemisphere.
Well, I know that, but the point is that people who say that there's always change don't know that, and that's why they use it as an excuse.
Yep, you're absolutely right. In fact, the little ice age was caused by a volcanic eruption. I don't know about the
I'm not sure what it did, but it did happen. And then by Victorian times, the cold had turned. We turned back to a climate that we've probably been used to for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Now, it seems that using coal as a heating made during the particularly the Victorian period, has caused a lot of the problems of change, of temperature change, and expectations and stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're reverting back for other reasons. But
there you go, Pat. Thank you. Thanks for the points. Well made. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Some of our elders. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Rob in Waconia, Minnesota. Hey, Rob, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to call and let you know that you can add Minnesota to the list of states that have an active lawsuit being filed to keep Donald Trump off the ballot.
Great.
It was just filed this morning by a group called Free Speech for People, and it's on the behalf of several Minnesota voters, including a former DFL Secretary of State and a former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice.
What's DSL?
Democratic Farmers and Laborers.
Oh, DFL.
The Minnesota version of the Democratic Party.
Right, yeah, I get it. Well, that's great. That's great news, Rob. Thank you for informing us about that. What venue is the lawsuit in?
I believe it is, doesn't say exactly here. Asking the state Supreme Court to keep.
So they're taking it right to the Supreme Court.
Ballot.
Step one.
So Minnesota State Supreme Court.
Interesting. Well, keep an eye on that. Keep us up to date, would you, Rob?
I will. This was just published on NPR News today.
Great. I'll check it out. Rob, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Archie in Ramseur, North Carolina. Hey, Archie, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You were talking about term limits. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of always thinking about, it'd be nice to have term limits on Congress. And then I realized, I understand we do have term limits. They're called elections, and that kind of goes back to maybe getting more help from Citizens United being overturned than term limits. But my question is, what about this age problem that has come up even with our president and, of course, with Mitch McConnell and some of our representatives? I mean, what about that? Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I'd say it's also up to the voters. If the voters think that a person is too old for the job, they don't vote for him. Which given all the media hysteria around Joe Biden's age, it's funny. Democrats. I don't think this is a big issue for most Democrats, but the media just is pounding on this. Of course, it's the Republicans driving the discussion. And there's no discussion of Donald Trump at the age of 77 and slurring his words and his speeches and stuff like that. There's no discussion of him being too old to run for office. But Joe Biden, oh my God. I don't think the term limits, I don't even think age limits are the solution to that, because Bernie Sanders is the exact same age as Joe Biden. In fact, I think he's a year older. I think Bernie is 81. And Nancy Pelosi is 83. and she's running for re-election. And those two are sharp as a knife. They are just, right there. And Bernie's traveling around the country giving speeches, and he's the Energizer Bunny. I mean, I'd vote for Bernie or for Nancy Pelosi in a heartbeat. I'd vote for Joe Biden. I'm very enthusiastic about Joe Biden's candidacy. On the other hand, it looks like Mitch McConnell is struggling with his age, and clearly Dianne Feinstein is. And, I'm guessing that the voters in Kentucky and California would take that into account if they run for re-election. I'd be surprised if either one of them run for re-election, though. So, Archie, thanks a lot for the call. Yeah, good stuff to talk about. Thank you. It's 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Between 40 years of Ronald Reagan's neoliberalism destroying the American middle class and all the just horrors of January 6th and the Trump presidency, America's waking up, and that's a really good thing. There's actually, some books coming out about this. Mine, The Hidden History of Democracy. Neil Howe's The Fourth Turning is here. And it looks like a moment of American renaissance is upon us, if our media doesn't screw it up, which raises the question, can we have democracy and Fox News? Can the two coexist? Like, when Fox News runs chyrons saying that essentially Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator who's throwing Trump in jail because he's his political opponent. There's a whole rant about this and an in-depth analysis of what can we do with regard to repairing our media here in the United States over at HartmannReport.com. I think you'll find it interesting. Check it out. Eight minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Francesco in Sarasota, Florida, listening on WSLR. Hey, Francesco, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for your show. I live in Sarasota, which is a lovely place to live, except for the political environment. I'm from New York originally, so you can imagine it's a little tough on that end.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about something that's been a long-term frustration for me, the inability of Democrats to take things that are handed to them, narratives that they could create, and do nothing with them. If I could give you a little background, I was a big Bernie supporter in 2016, and when he wasn't nominated for whatever reason, I went to work for Hillary Clinton. And I remember distinctly Trump was going through some bad times, definitely some bad media press and the Hollywood Access tapes and things like that. And she was on a plane, and somebody asked her a question about these things. And her response was, well, we'll let them run the campaign the way they want, and we'll run our campaign. And I thought in that moment, unlike many of my fellow workers, she's going to lose because she doesn't understand what politics are in America today.
Yeah. She should have said, this man is sick. He's a twisted, perverted, et cetera.
Exactly. And it killed me. It killed me because I was one of those people who were literally nauseous after the election for quite a while. But today, there was another instance of that. Putin came out and he talked about how Trump is a victim of the American system.
Right, the corrupt American system, Putin called it.
Exactly. And they had a Democratic congressman or senator from California on, and he read this quote about that Putin had made, and his response was so discombobulated that he could not connect the dots to turn this into something against Trump. And it just, this is just the last of a long line of an inability to create a narrative. And the Republicans do it whether they have to lie, whether they have to create things that aren't real.
Right.
They create, just like with Joe Biden.
Yep.
They created this narrative a long time ago, before he was showing cognitive problems. And they kept with it. And now, as you said, it's all over the media.
Yeah.
So it's a frustration of mine because They don't seem to understand politics in America right now.
How hard is it to say Donald Trump is a tool, Donald Trump is wholly owned by Vladimir Putin? How difficult is that to say for a Democratic politician? I don't get it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you've read the quote, it is a softball. It's sitting on a team.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Francesco. And hopefully the Democrats will be using that. But, you know, I'm so sorry to hear about that response. Francesco, thanks for the call. Cody in New York City. Hey, Cody, what's on your mind today? Cody, watching Free Speech TV in New York City? No Cody. Okay, let's try Nick in Huntington, West Virginia. Hey, Nick, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I'd like to talk to you today about what do you think if we get a third-party candidate like they're saying here, rumors flying around West Virginia, Joe Manchin wanting to run, how that could hurt us and Trump get in again? And I'll let you have it from there.
Well, this is a problem, and I think it's one of the reasons why No Labels is talking about running a third-party candidate, because the people who run No Labels are bitter, angry ex-Democratic consultants who were essentially fired. I mean, they used to work for the Clintons, and they got fired by the Democratic Party because they were too right-wing, and now they're trying to make sure that whoever the Republican nominee is becomes president, in my opinion, and the opinion of many. And if that's the case, I mean, you know, they realize that if they can get a third-party candidate up, particularly one who's a Democrat or was a Democrat, it will, Joe Manchin is still a Democrat, it will draw more votes away from Joe Biden than it will from Donald Trump or whoever the nominee is. It's looking more and more like it's going to be Donald Trump. And I think it's despicable what they're doing, but, you know, I have no control over it. I hope people figure out what's going on. It's the same. I feel the same way about the Green Party. You know what's going on there with Cornel West. I just never would have thought of Cornel West having that little integrity. But c'est la vie. Nick, thanks for the call. Coming up next, Greg Palast is going to drop by and share the story of the Osage in Oklahoma. This is an amazing story. It piggybacks on Leonardo DiCaprio's new movie.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that you know, I like to say, you know, help you win the water cooler wars, programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, and that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, you know, right now it's meaningful, but, you know, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book, and going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. My well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go. The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's for the $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you. Welcome to the third hour of our program. So Leonardo DiCaprio has a new movie coming out, I think later this year, I think this fall. And I'll let Greg Palast tell you the details about it. And Greg is putting together basically a follow-on that picks up the story. So again, I'll let him tell you all about it. On the line with us, investigative journalist, author, filmmaker. His latest film in the making, Long Knife, Osage Oil and the New Trail of Tears. You can watch the 100-second teaser. I just retweeted it just a moment ago, or you can go to gregpalast.com, Greg_Palast on Twitter or on X or whatever you want to call it. Greg, welcome back to the program. Tell us about, first off, Leo's new movie, and then this movie that you're doing that's back to back with it.
Yeah, well, the movie is Killers of the Flower Moon, and who was killed? Osage natives on the Osage Indian Reservation. You have to understand that at the turn of the 20th century, the biggest oil strike in American history to that point was found on the Osage Reservation. This provided our oil for World War I. It made the Osage temporarily, I say temporarily, the richest people on the planet because they were sitting on top of all this oil. They started developing the oil. And then the government came in and said, no. Even though you purchased, they're unusual, the Osage. They purchased their reservation. That's land they own. They said, you may own this land, but you're still Indians under American care because you're not competent. You're like children. And so they gave the oil to a bunch of big oil companies like Sinclair, Phillips, Conoco. Getty's first big oil strike was taken from the Osage. They got some royalties. And then the government said, well, since you're incompetent, we'll put every Osage will have a white person to handle and protect them and their money, their millions. Well, it didn't take long before we think up to 160 Osage were assassinated by their guardians to take their oil. I'm not kidding you. It was a mass
What state
murder.
was this? Is in Oklahoma?
This is in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So you had over 100 Osage shot in the back of the head, their homes dynamited, run over by cars. We had one instance, remember, they can't get access to their own money, where we had one child die of starvation, even though he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank under his name, which the white guardians and the government refused to give to them. They were starving to death and they were shot, killed, blown up. That was the story of Killers of the Flower Moon, which will come out October 20, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. But the Osage said, we're thrilled to have Leonardo tell this story. But we really need you also to say, we didn't disappear 100 years ago, because that story ends about 1923. It's been 100 years. And we're still in this fight. This story ain't over in the least. And at the core of it, we want someone to tell the story of Coke Oil and what they did to the Osage Nation after we were slaughtered by our own so-called guardians.
You're talking the oil company owned by the Koch brothers.
Yes.
And now it's just Charles Koch, the only survivor.
Right. But this was basically a Charles Koch operation. By the way, David was kind of a nebbish who just went along for the ride. What happened was David Koch. So what happened was, and this is what the Osage want you to understand, is that after the assassinations, the mass assassinations, which they said, didn't end for decades, but, the FBI would not continue to investigate. But they had almost no oil left, just these little stripper wells. So this little company out of Wichita, Coke Oil, said, we'll pick up all your oil. They became the #1 gatherer of stripper well oil from Indian reservations all over America. That's the origin of Coke Oil. Now, okay, that sounds like a good job. They're helping the Indians sell their oil. They were stealing left and right, literally stealing out of their tanks. They would send out trucks. They would take 80 barrels of oil from some poor Indian stripper well. And you have to understand, these people were literally surviving on this, trying to eat off this, like getting $300, $400, $500 a month. That's all they were getting in the poorest, one of the poorest places on this planet, the Osage Reservation in Oklahoma. And Coke would take 80 barrels of oil and tell their drivers to write down 60. And you'll see in the film, drivers who are literally in tears because it was steal from these poor people or they lose their jobs. And remember, they're in Oklahoma. There's not a lot of opportunity where they were out in the res. And so so that's the story of the theft of over $1 billion from the Osage by Coke Oil, leaving them impoverished. And then it continues, the story continues on. After they caught Coke.
Now this,
by the way,
this was when Fred Koch was running the company, right? By the way, Honoré de Balzac, his famous quote, behind every great fortune, there's a great crime. I think you've just uncovered one.
Yes. So this is the origin of the Koch's billions. They were small-time operators out of Wichita. Mm-hmm. And this is the source of their billions, was stealing oil. And I say that very carefully because I was on this investigation back in the early 90s, which is why I was invited back by the Osage to tell this story. I was part of that investigation. The FBI came in. An indictment was written up that would send Charles Koch to prison for a good 20 years or so.
Whoa.
Yes. So I actually have a copy of the draft indictment. There was a grand jury impaneled. This was after the FBI came in and took witness statements from 50 drivers who admitted to stealing the oil and told that Charlie Koch told them to do it. In addition, I just spoke with the U.S. federal prosecutor who became the U.S. Senate's chief investigator of Coke Oil, working with the FBI. He's the only guy who ever got Charles Koch under oath to talk about his oil thefts. And he said Koch basically confessed. I got a copy of that confidential deposition. Koch confessed to stealing the oil. Like, well, so it is. But suddenly that indictment of Coke Oil and Charles Koch was quashed. It didn't see the light of day. The prosecutor had been removed. A crony of Bob Dole, the Senate Republican leader at the time, was put in as the new prosecutor, ended the quashed the investigation, ended the grand jury, even sent Koch a letter saying you didn't commit any crimes. By the way, no one ever does that. Yeah. You don't send, prosecutors don't send get out of jail free letters.
What year was
that
this?
To Koch.
When was this?
This was back in about 92. And that judge, that prosecutor was in only a very short time, did the deed for Senator Dole and got Koch off the hook, and then suddenly was made a federal judge. As this federal prosecutor, Ken Ballin, said, it doesn't pass the smell test. But that's just the beginning. So the Kochs were also dumping sludge in native waterways. They're still living with this poison. And now, Tom, you've got a special situation. This is why the Osage really want you to hear this full story, bring it up to date. They said, we didn't just disappear 100 years ago with that tragedy. We're still fighting. Right now, there are 10,000 abandoned oil wells on the Osage Reservation. It is a ozone crisis disaster. You have to understand, 10,000 wells spewing methane into the air. And if you go there and it's spewing crud into the waters, I was at these wells. You'll see it in the film, this filth. And they're simply asking that the oil companies and the U.S. government, which allowed these people to take off with the oil, God knows how much they didn't pay for, and just left them with these abandoned wells. They were supposed to close them up, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs was supposed to, and the Bureau of Land Management was supposed to be taking bonds from these oil companies. Well, it took like $5,000 to close a well. That's like $100,000. The Osage themselves are sealing up these wells because they say, we're not tourists here. We live here. We're getting poisoned. They're doing it there, to a great extent that they're out of their own pocket. They can't keep doing this. We cannot keep using the American tribes as just a kind of our resource toilet where we dump our crud, take their resources, dump our crud, and say, see you later.
Wow.
That's what they want us to know.
So you're making a movie about this called Long Knife, Osage Oil and the New Trail of Tears. When's that going to be? As I said, the trailer's available. You can see it. I just retweeted it. You can go to gregpalast.com and check it out. It's a 100-second teaser, essentially. But when's your movie going to be out, Greg? Is it going to follow Leonardo's, or are you going to put it out before?
We'll do that in coordination next year. We'll be working that out to make sure it has the maximum beneficial impact.
Next year, you mean next month, right?
Well, next month is the Killers of the Flower Moon will be out.
Right.
Then it will be, as it's released later in the public and we get into award season, frankly, we'll be coordinating to make sure it has the maximum impact. So probably in a few months.
Cool. That's great. So good stuff. Greg, you're amazing. You're just an amazing guy. And you and George DiCaprio, who I know is your executive producer or producer on this thing.
That's right.
Great.
He's producer, yes.
Great work you guys are doing.
Great family. Can't play, they've done great work.
Yep. Thank you so much, Greg, for dropping by and telling us about it. People, check it out at gregpalast.com. Thank you, Greg.
You're very welcome.
Have a good one. It's 16 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
The world's largest carbon capture facility is coming to Texas. Will it work, or is this just greenwashing? Stay tuned. And welcome back. Let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Cody in New York City. Hey, Cody, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I just wanted to pick up the topic that you've been discussing today about the brain research and Republicans and Democrats. So there have been some really interesting studies on the human brain about this, about Republicans and Democrats. And interestingly, these studies have predicted with a super high degree of accuracy whether these test subjects were actually Democrats or Republicans. Mm-hmm. So what they did was there were two types of studies. They were both wired up to showing these test subjects images, and they were neutral images, completely neutral images. And the first test asked the test subjects, please describe what you see in the images. And they monitored the responses. And if the responses came back and had something to do with like hostility or fear or aggression or these types of things, they characterized the test subject as likely Republican. And on the other hand, if the answers came back that were positive and amicable, like, oh, those two people are having a good time. Or if the response came back as neutral, like the test subject said, oh, I can't tell what's going on in this image, then they characterized that test subject as a liberal or a Democrat. And these studies produced like this super high degree of predictability, like 98% or something crazy high like that as to which test subjects were Republican and Democrat. The other tests, they basically did the same thing where they wired up the test subjects, but this time they showed them the images, but this time they wired up their brains to electrodes and they monitored their brain activity. And what they saw was there was this distinct difference in the brain activity. One type of respondent had the brain activity in the limbic system, which is the primitive aspect of the brain, which is responsible for, fight or flight response, hunger, sex drive, fear, aggression, these types of things. And that's located in the back, right near where the brain attaches to the spinal cord. And the other area of the brain was the prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain, like right behind your forehead. And this is responsible for the more sophisticated processing of the brain, like language and, abstract reasoning, critical thinking. Exactly. So what they did was they saw if the limbic system, the primitive system, lit up to these images, then they characterized this test subject as likely Republican. And if the prefrontal cortex lit up, they characterized the test subject as likely Democrat. And again, it produced this high degree of accuracy of predictability. Pretty amazing. So if those studies are true, that kind of suggests that maybe there really is a difference between us, that it's not just a question of, that we could just convince the other side, but really we are processing two different things. We are seeing the exact same thing in the outer world, but our brains are telling us it is something very different than the other person.
It also gives you a clue as to how to market politicians and political positions to Republicans or independents who might lean Republican. And that is to frame things in the context of danger rather than in the context of benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. Fascinating stuff. Cody, thank you. Thank you, Tom. If you can find a link to any of those studies, would you tweet it to me?
Sure thing.
Or just post it over on Hartmann Report or whatever, whatever's easiest for you, but just get it to me. I'd love to see them. Thank you. It's 21 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming, and here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in the very high upper bracket have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am re-elected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. 22 minutes past the hour, and there was one other story that I just wanted to share with you. This is from The Guardian. The headline is, "The world's biggest carbon capture facility is being built in Texas. The plant will inject 500,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the ground each year." And, the big question is this just the latest greenwashing boondoggle, or is this going to be actually the beginning of something really good? And this is being funded by the Energy Department. There's two separate facilities, one by Carbon Engineering in the southern reaches of Texas. They're getting $1.2 billion. And further two hubs will have yet to be chosen by the federal government, but Jennifer Granholm will be announcing that. That's $3.5 billion. And this is a big moment. Up until this point, most of the carbon capture and sequestration stuff that has been done has been basically a hustle. The fossil fuel companies have been pushing it really, really hard, saying, this is, here's the solution. Don't make us stop burning fossil fuels. Just help us clean up our waste. And, the question is, will these facilities, they're going to require enormous amounts of energy to operate. Will they burn more energy than they capture? Now, there is one very successful carbon capture plant operating in the world that has captured so far, 100 million tons of carbon dioxide. This is it's by ClimateWorks, and it's in Iceland. But what's unique about that is the power that it gets to drive the process of removing carbon from the atmosphere comes from volcanic activity. Iceland is sitting on a bunch of volcanoes, and so they just drill down into the magma or close enough to it to get enough heat, and then they use that heat to drive the process. But can we do it in Texas, where basically, you know, you've got to use either electricity or fossil fuels to drive the process? Nobody really knows for sure. I have, up until the last year or so, I've been very skeptical of carbon capture and sequestration. And you know, just straight up called it a scam. I'm not sure that that's the case anymore, but the verdict is still out. But I think that actually this is a good start. I'm glad to see it. So just FYI. All right, let's pick up your calls here. Jim in Auburn, New York. Hey, Jim, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, we talked before about President Biden looking weak, and I think all the lies that Trump and the Republicans have spread, and you know, you scream a lie long enough and loud enough, people start to resonate with it.
Yeah.
He should be leading 2-1 in the polls.
I agree.
I mean, so there's something.
Well, crime
wrong
is
here.
down, inflation is down, unemployment is down. I mean, it's, all of the indicators are very
better.
Yeah, all the indicators are good. We're building factories in America for the first time in 40 years. There's a lot of really good stuff going on, and yet the Republicans keep saying, you know, oh, it's terrible, crime. You know, Paul Krugman has a piece in the New York Times today about how Donald Trump in 2016 ran on crime in our cities exploding, when in fact crime had just hit a 40-year low. I mean, you just lie to people and they eventually believe it. The whole immigration crisis stuff, another big lie. So.
Well, this is like with Biden. Trump calls him out, calls him a fascist, a communist, and Biden never even says Trump's name. The last guy that was in office, he says, you know.
Former guy, yeah.
And, I mean, he's just not looking, he's looking weak, and people don't like that. And I think the Democrats should look maybe to lean a little bit more towards center.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
Gavin, I don't think it's a matter of positions. I think it's a matter of posture. Gavin Newsom is doing some kick-ass stuff, and I think that's what Biden. By the way, there's a report that I saw yesterday that the Biden campaign is going to start characterizing Donald Trump as a threat to democracy in the United States, the entire MAGA movement, in fact. I think that's really good. I think that, you know, like we, with the previous caller, reaching out based on worry and fear, that's important stuff. Jim, thank you for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back with your calls. Stay tuned. Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that you know, I like to say, you know, help you win the water cooler wars, programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it, please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air. And that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and I've seen this over and over and over again. The year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when that, you know, when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, you know, right now it's meaningful, but, you know, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, you know, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book. And going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. My well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's with a $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you. From international trade policy to immigration policy to housing, we've got all kinds of topics. The wars between Republicans and Democrats, the Republican efforts to induce fascism in the United States. A great selection of opinions will be found over at HartmannReport.com. So right-wing billionaires are major funders of the GOP, and the GOP has been promoting basically a death cult. You got Ron DeSantis most recently signing a law that eliminates legal liability for medical professionals who refuse to provide services to people in crisis if it violates their moral, ethical, or religious convictions. The Republican Party has picked up from the Democrats, actually, ironically, weirdly, you know, the old Dixiecrats, the old Southern racists. They used to be Democrats prior to 1964, but then, you know, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and all that. You know, and Nixon came in along in '68 with the Southern strategy, and now they're all Republicans. So why are these right-wing billionaires willing to support this death cult? Is it really just about taxes and deregulation? There's a piece about it at thehartmannreport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. And let's see here. Dynamo Dave in Duluth, Minnesota. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Oh, thank you, Tom, for taking my call. Hey, that last year guest, when Greg Palast was on there, man, that guy is an American hero. You remember back in the day when 60 Minutes used to do investigative reporting? I don't think I've seen a show that had investigative reporting on it for over 30 years.
Yeah, I quit watching 60 Minutes because they quit doing that. The old saying used to be, you know, for business people, you know, it's going to be a bad day when there's a 60 Minutes camera crew outside your door when you come into work. I don't think anybody's saying that anymore.
Right. Hey, so sometimes it seems like the Democrats are rather ineffectual against the Republicans, and I wanted to propose an idea to you and your listeners. If you recall, July 1st, 1993, President Clinton signed an order to close 130 military bases, domestic ones, 35 of them major ones, 95 minor ones, and that happened. And what I'm thinking, if this Tommy Tuberville is holding up in various military personnel, and perhaps he's doing it till they get a Republican in office so that they can get somebody who's going to follow the orders of, you know, whoever's the commander-in-chief of their party. But can't Biden, as the commander-in-chief, threaten to close bases in Alabama or any Republican district across the U.S.?
He could. It would be politically explosive. I think that would be like taking a shotgun after a fly. The Senate can deal with Tuberville, and the Republicans in the Senate need to be thinking about what they're going to do. And the voters of Alabama can deal with Tuberville. But increasingly, he's got Republicans who are trash-talking him now, which is a good thing. I don't think he's going to hold out for more than a few more weeks. But, you know, we'll see. But it is harming our military. Tommy Tuberville, who never was in the military, his great claim to fame is that he was the coach for the Clemson football team. And, you know, I think maybe he's had one too many head injuries. Because this guy is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He's just not doing well. Dave, thank you for the call. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I wanted to add to the conversation about the Osage tribe. The FBI was actually founded in 1926 to investigate the murders of the Osage tribal members.
Really?
Yes. I'm surprised that fact didn't come out. It was founded by then Attorney General Harlan Fiske Stone, who was the AG to Calvin Coolidge, and of course, who was later appointed by Herbert Hoover to the Supreme Court as an associate justice. And then after the death of Charles Evans Hughes, the 11th Chief Justice, and Stone became the Chief Justice. But he appointed Stone. Harlan Fiske Stone was the Attorney General and commissioned J. Edgar Hoover, a Justice Department operative, to head up this new division to investigate these murders. And because it was very weird, the Osage were actually moved onto that land where the oil was. They were moved off of fertile farming ground to make way for white people, and shoved onto this rocky, completely infertile land where the oil was eventually discovered. And of course, then everybody went, wait a minute. And remember, this whole thing that took place was also during the days of the Teapot Dome scandal in the 1920s. 100 years ago, where it was bribery. Federal oil lands or federal lands were just being given basically
this
to
was
the
the
oil
Coolidge administration. Yeah.
Yeah,
And Albert Fall was the Secretary of the Interior who was busted for that, wasn't he?
Yeah, right. So that was. But yeah, the FBI was founded for that, to investigate these murders, and the Osage, like many other tribes, really got the shaft. No, pardon the pun, but I was going to say the native tribes have never won a case in the Supreme Court. I'm not saying they haven't won a case in federal court, but it's just a shameless plug to my own program, Tom, which is on WCPT on Sunday evenings, called Kitchen Table Progressive. Not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, the 24th of September, I will be interviewing an expert, Judy Daubenmeier, professor of history and was specialized in Native American studies. I will interview her about Native American issues because, as you may know, just the last Supreme Court session, the Navajo tribe lost in a water rights case to the state of Arizona, and Brett Kavanaugh wrote this BS decision that essentially the Navajo have no water on their tribe, on their lands,
and their land abuts the Colorado River, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the Arizona was given standing to intervene in the 1868 treaty. Never mentioned anything about water because it was presumed that a sovereign nation should be able to at least have the necessities of life.
Right.
And Brett Kavanaugh said, we're not going to use common law here. We're going to use textualism and since there's nothing about water in here, the Navajo Nation, just to hell with them. But there's, in the interview that I do with Professor Daubenmeier next Sunday, we talk a lot about things about Native tribes, basic things about Native tribes that most people probably are not aware of. So it's Sunday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And this Sunday, I will be talking about disabilities and things probably people don't know about disabilities. So, but that Native American Issues program is coming up next Sunday, the 24th.
Great, on WCPT.com. Thank you, Paul. Good talking to you. John in Bradenton, Florida. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Can you hear me?
I can, just fine. What's up?
Okay, great. Listen, I'm really nervous, so please don't cut me off.
It's okay. It's just you and me here.
Okay. I woke up, I think, probably the third week in May with an epiphany. I mean, I sat bolt upright in bed. And, I mean, it was just too simple and too miraculous to be true. So I tried to go back to sleep, and I couldn't. And so I kept thinking about it for 2 or 3 days. And I couldn't, I tried to talk to some of my friends about it, and they were right away wanting to Baker Act me. But the epiphany is that, have you heard of a marijuana brand called, I think it's called kratom?
Kratom is not marijuana. It's a completely separate plant. I think it comes out of Africa, and it binds opiate receptors, so it works more like opium than pot. It doesn't. It doesn't hit your cannabidol. So what about it?
Well, if you promoted that product and made it available to anybody that wanted it, the drug cartels all over the planet would shut down overnight.
No, it's not that spectacular a cure-all. I mean, there are people who are using it to deal with opiate addiction, and it seems to work better than methadone, but not as well as naltrexone. So it's not a miracle drug, John. It's an herb, and it does some cool things, but kratom is no solution to all the problems of the world. John, thanks for the call. It's 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Right back with more of your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us. And welcome back. Philip in Woodlands, Texas. Hey, Philip, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I want to talk about the immigration policy and white privilege.
Okay.
Eric Adams just told the entire city of New York to take a 5% pay cut to help offset the price of the illegal immigrants.
Right.
Right. So, American people have to pay for this?
Apparently, I don't understand why Republicans keep inviting them in. I mean, you've got over 100 Republican members of Congress who have publicly, on the record, gone out and said, the southern border is wide open, come on up. And, people are listening to them.
Biden.
No,
that was Biden.
Biden has never said the border is open. In fact, he said the exact opposite. He said, please don't come.
No, Biden.
Philip.
No, Biden said he will not deport anyone else, and not one more foot.
I'm telling you, Philip, if you just Google, just plug it into the search engine, border is open, member of Congress or senator, and you will find over 100 members of Congress, and I've listed them in previous op-eds and talked about it here on the air, where these guys, Ted Cruz, every other month, Ted Cruz comes out and goes, the border's wide open. And there are flyers being circulated in Spanish in Guatemala by coyotes who are looking for business, quoting Ted Cruz. You've got Republicans love this because they whenever there's a Democrat in office, suddenly it's a crisis and the Republicans are all freaked out and, oh my God, at the same time that they're saying the border is wide open. You get a Republican in the White House and suddenly they don't talk about it. There was no talk about the border during the Bush administration, and there was very little talk about it during the Trump administration. But as soon as you get a Democrat in office, it's like, oh, the border's open. And what does that do? It causes people to start coming thinking that the border is open. You will not find one single link to a news story citing a Democrat saying that the border is open. Not one.
No, you will. And that's called President Biden.
Okay.
When he said
Philip, you're spouting nonsense. I'm going to move along. Sandra in Houston. Hey, Sandra, what's on your mind today?
It's me. I was just listening to that conversation. I used to live in the Woodlands. That's a Republican stronghold. I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
Yeah, I get it.
But anyway, I knew you were going to have problems with him as soon as you said he was from the Woodlands. But anyway, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to you pretty much every single day. And unfortunately, I try to write down everything you say. I do it I transcribe it and then put it in my archives in my personal email. Whenever you make a reference to something, I can usually go back and find whatever I'm looking for so I can cite it in one of my Twitter posts. A long time ago, you said something about a Republican who came up with the idea if you deny health care to underprivileged people, they'll eventually die off.
Yeah, it was specifically black people, and it wasn't partisan. This was a guy named Frederick Hoffman. I wrote about it in my book, The Hidden History of American Health Care. I'm sorry?
I'm writing it down.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the reference.
And this was the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And his name was Frederick Hoffman. He became the vice president of the Prudential Insurance Company. If you just plug into a search engine, Hoffman, Hartman, Prudential, those three words, you will find the articles that I've written about this. And also, as I said, my book is there. Also, Sue pushes out a newsletter every afternoon, Sue Nethercutt, who works on our staff, that has hot links to every single thing that I talk about every single day, and it's free. It's over at tom.tv.
I know, I just couldn't find it in my archives because I have you going out from last year.
Okay,
so
well, that's how to find it, Sandra. I wish you the very best. I got to run. Thank you. It's 49 minutes past the hour. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Welcome back. Picking up your calls 49 minutes past the hour. Sabid in San Francisco. Hey, Sabid, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Hi. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so I was listening to Jamie Raskin this weekend, and he was talking about how the Republicans, they're about to do this whole impeachment thing with President Biden, and he was saying it's just because they wanted to muddy President Biden up. Yep. What I'm wondering is if they go ahead beyond the inquiry and then they go ahead and move to impeach. How will that, maybe play out for the president? The Democrats. I'm a Democrat, but we don't push back hard enough. We don't push back, the way Republicans lie. You know what I'm saying? If we push back in the same strength as they lie, man. Maybe we can, equalize the garbage that they put out there. You know what I mean? And counter something like this. Because I'm like, Biden hasn't done anything. At least that's what I think, right? From everything that I've read, they've come up with nothing real, right?
Yeah. Here's the difference, Sabid. The Democrats, when they tried to impeach Donald Trump, they were actually engaged in a good faith effort to remove a man from office who had committed the high crimes and misdemeanors that the Constitution specifies. The Republicans, Kevin McCarthy came out and said it this morning. They have no evidence at all. All they have are suggestions that there might be evidence if they investigate hard enough. This is a fishing expedition. And you're right, it's designed to muddy up or to dirty up President Biden, period, full stop. That's the beginning and end of it. That's why they're doing it. And in fact, it's not even a real impeachment inquiry. They did not create a committee to investigate the possibility of impeachment. This is going to be done by the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee by Jim Jordan and James Comer. And, it's a farce. It's just a farce. But I fear, I'm very concerned about this. I think it's going to be very much like the Swift boat thing in 2004 where they went after John Kerry and they just made stuff up. Oh, he shot himself, in order to get those Purple Hearts and Silver Star. They just lied about him. And enough people believed it that, George W. Bush got reelected. So, but this is purely political. Sabid, thank you for the call. Johan in Los Angeles. Hey, Johan, what's on your mind today?
You were talking about the green washing for carbon capture.
Yeah.
I think it should just make business people to do business as usual in the big picture, and then make a thing that.
In other words, it's a money-making opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I know that the big fossil fuel companies have been promoting carbon capture as the solution, as an alternative to cutting back on fossil fuel, on using fossil fuels, which is going to be very problematic.
It's like a plus and minus. That's it. Just because of the plus and minus, they think it's a good opportunity to say it's green, when the other side of the world, South America, Brazil, probably got the trees up right now, and that's not going to help. I try to full our heads. I think. What do you think?
Like I said, I think that carbon capture has potential, but I think it has a very limited potential. What we need to do is stop burning fossil fuels. Period. Full stop. Johan, thanks for the call. Nate in Detroit, Michigan. Hey, Nate, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I want to talk about political bribery in the Supreme Court. In Robert Reich's book, I think it was Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few, and he cited a study that was done where, irregardless, it could be 70% support in the country, it could be 30% support. A law, a bill, any legislation, it has the same chance of passing, irregardless of public support. And what makes the difference is big business, and this comes from the Powell memo. Yep. And all the stuff like that. So, yep. This until we get money out of politics, and I'm not sure if you remember my last call and how I was worried about this MAGA movement. Until money is out, yes, I know voting, and I fully expect the Republicans to struggle in 24, and they're a shell of the party. But at the same time, there are so many districts that are just impossible for Democrats to win because of gerrymandering. There's so much money in politics. It's just, you know, short of people becoming like professional full-time activists who are financially able to do so, or even coupling that with a you know, or just not until Democrats are able to get a filibuster-proof majority, a supermajority in the House. How do we reform the court and do the things that we know that we need to do in order to clean up our political system?
Short of you know a massive Democratic majority in the House and Senate and holding the White House, there is nothing that can be done immediately politically. But that doesn't mean that at the grassroots level we can't be doing things. We should all, every single one of us, should be calling our elected representatives, our 2 senators and our member of the House of Representatives, and saying to them, the Supreme Court is corrupt. You have to do something about this. You know, there's a bunch of things that can be done, but just that simple message. We need to be putting pressure on politicians. That includes Republican politicians, you know, right across the board. We need to be talking about money in politics at the local and state level. You've got, you know, the ability of city, county, and state governments to do, you know, in a limited way. I realize that they would be up against Citizens United, but to do something about money in politics. We need to be sharing the word with our friends and neighbors. You know, I write about this. I wrote about this today. My op-ed today is essentially about Citizens United. And, you know, and I posted it over on Daily Kos to try to get, you know, more views because I want more people to get outraged about Citizens United and do something about it. And like I said, we can't do anything about it right now ourselves, but you know we certainly can begin the process, begin ginning up the public outrage and concern so that something will be done about it. And that's Nate, that's what we've got to do. I don't see any other alternatives. Nate, I got to run, but thanks for the call. It was a great one. It's 56 minutes past. It's the end of the hour. It's the end of the day. It's the end of the program. So thanks so much for being with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Well, here we are, rocking and rolling into day 2 of the, what is it, fall fund drive, I guess, and kind of end of summer pledge drive. And your opportunity to participate with Free Speech TV, to become part of this extraordinary television network that does such a great job in bringing you thoughtful, informative, entertaining, interesting, sometimes revelatory programming that you know, I like to say, you know, help you win the water cooler wars. Programming that not only reinforces what you know, but gives you more information. That takes you the step farther. And so many of the programs on Free Speech TV are so competent at doing that. I mean, they just do such a great job of filling in all the gray areas, of letting us know what's really going on in the world, and in particular, what's really going on with U.S. politics. So Free Speech TV is supported by its viewers. That's you. And today is the second day and the last day for a $20,000 match. Your gift up to $20,000 gets doubled. This is a big deal. So, you know, if you give $10, it becomes $20. If you give $100, it becomes $200. If you give $1,000, it becomes $2,000. Whatever you give will be doubled today, up to $20,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669 is the phone number. Or you can donate at freespeech.org. You can do it anytime. Just do it. Please. It's so important that we keep this network going, that we keep this network on the air, And that, frankly, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can start talking about growing this network. I realize the next 4 pledge drives are going to be a real challenge. You know, I've been with this network for 15 years, I think, and over and over and over again, the year and the last quarter leading up to a major national election is brutal for fundraising for Free Speech TV. I mean, you know, sometimes we see 20, 30% drops in fundraising. And so we need to make that up in advance right now. We really need your help right now. And, you know, let's get a little money in the bank so that when that, you know, when these next fund drives come along, because, you know, we're competing with every politician on earth, or at least every politician in America, for fundraising dollars. So, and the competition, you know, right now it's meaningful, but, you know, in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months, it's going to be massive. And so let's get a head start on this. Special thanks also to Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cadre, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Springs, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California, all the people who made that $20,000 match possible. It's a big deal. Thank you to them. Now, there's 2 ways to give, a one-time gift or a sustaining membership, and you can do both. You can call and say, hey, give me, you know, take $120 off my credit card right now and send me that new Thom Hartmann book. And going forward, charge my credit card $10 every month. And that's the sustaining membership. So seriously, consider doing both. It's just a great way to support this network. We have premiums. These go along with the one-time gifts. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of one of 3 things: the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV Cling window, whatever you call it. I guess you call it a cling, and or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With the $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. My well-used one you can see right here. It's got coffee stains all over it. Well, I was drinking my decaf from it earlier. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy. I think I've got one around here someplace. Here we go, The Hidden History of American Democracy. Autographed by the author. That's with a $120 gift. Or if you don't want that, or if you already have that, and you don't want to get an extra one as a gift for somebody else, you can choose Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. That's Sonali's new book, which is a great book. She was on this program about it. Or Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. This is David Pakman's new book. All great, you know, great and talented people here on Free Speech TV. With a $200 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet, where we all get together on a Zoom call and just hang out for a while. With a $1,000 gift, you have a choice of one of 2 different things. Either come here and visit us here in Portland, or they will send you the complete set of the Hidden History books. This is the 9th book in the set, and they'll send you all 9 books, each one autographed by me. So, I mean, that's something you can sell on eBay, right? But that's with a $1,000 gift. I doubt you'll get that much for it, but maybe in a couple of years. You never know, right? So, bottom line, please help out. We really need to make this pledge drive a success. We are day 2 of 10 days. There's only going to be 10 days, 10 business days here to do this. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your pledge. Thank you.